podcast because I don't even know where people watch it. So
welcome to the Holistic Kid Show. My name is Dane.
My name is Imad.
And my name's Qasim.
We are the Holistic Kids, here to educate and empower us kids from the inside out. Almost 3/4 of adolescents experience clinically significant depression or anxiety symptoms, with most being chronic.
1 in 10 U.S. children have ADHD or a behavioral problem. 1 in 3 teens have seriously thought. 1 in 3 teen girls have seriously thought of suicide.
And these are all really, really depressing statistics, and they're only increasing. But luckily, we have Drew Ramsey, MD, which is a board-certified psychiatrist, author, and leading voice in nutritional psychiatry and integrative mental health. For 3 years, he served as an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at Columbia University. Dr. Ramsey has authored 4 books, including the international best-selling Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. He is a dynamic speaker, podcast host, and educator who has delivered 3 TEDx talks, and his work has been featured by the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Today Show, NPR, and other notable outlets. He lives in Jackson, Wyoming, and with his wife and family. So, wow, Dr. Ramsey.
Wow.
I mean, I recently just did 1 TEDx talk, so it's amazing that you did 3 and all these other, like, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. That's really amazing.
Like, wow, Dr. Ramsey, like you with the mental crisis, like we need your help. Like, thank you for being here with us today. But we would love to know what is your story? How did you get motivated to do 3 TEDx talks?
well, you know, the TEDx talks, they ask and you say yes, and boy, as you know, it's stressful. First, I just want to thank you guys for putting together a show and interesting a lot of teens in holistic health and just taking care of their health and being more active. As you note, those are really scary and sad statistics, and I think a lot of people your age, they hear about this mental health crisis, but you're also trying to be like kids and teens, and like, what do you do about it? And so I'm really glad to be talking to you today to talk about one thing that we all can do a little better job of, and we can all learn the evidence and new research around how food impacts our mental health and our brain health. Not that, if we eat everything, all the brain foods, we're never going to have a mental health problem. Mental health is, hard like that. You can do everything right and still really struggle with depression or bipolar disorder. But what we know from the research is when we take better care of ourselves, when we eat more of the brain foods we're going to talk about, when we engage in mental fitness, we just know that we can prevent those illnesses in some people. And then when people need treatment, they just do better when we're taking care of sleep and food and movement and social connection, which are also important to your mental health. So I'm stoked to be talking with you guys, and thanks so much for spreading the word about health.
It's out on
Yeah, it really is. And also, how did you, like a psychiatrist, start to incorporate like food?
Well, so my backstory, I come from really rural Indiana, and my parents moved back. They wanted to start a farm way back in the day when I was a kid. So when I was your guys' age, I was living out like in the middle of a big field and a big forest, and we grew a lot of our own food. And I just always really been interested in nutrition and how it's one of those choices that we make every day, and it gets kind of automatic. I'm like everybody else. I love candy and ice cream and cookies and pizza and pasta and all that stuff that, if I'm really honest sometimes about how I feel, I don't feel so great after I eat it. I think we've all sort of had those meals where, wow, we eat really delicious, healthy foods like lentils and avocados. And, we just feel better. And so I got really interested, and then the data started to pour in. But at first it was just, I was a young psychiatrist. I noticed we weren't really asking patients about what they eat. Any of you who've seen a mental health clinician, we talk a lot about your feelings and wonder what's going on and want you to, kind of share what's going on inside your mind with us. But it's really rare that we say, hey, tell me a little bit about how you take care of yourself. What do you eat? What foods do you like? Helping to create some goals and some motivation for people to just make better choices according to the most recent science. And so for me, just kind of, I don't know, I got curious. I'm an active clinician, so I've been seeing patients around my couch all day and on the Zoom or FaceTime. And I really love clinical work. It's just wonderful to talk with people, and, all this knowledge and all this stuff you learn, it kind of doesn't mean anything unless you learn to apply it well. and that we can all say avocados are great for mental health, but sitting with somebody who's never bought an avocado before or didn't know that, and then getting them into somebody who likes and eats avocados, that's a clinical skill, how we create behavioral change, how you create what we call alliance with patients. And so the food has just been a really joyful part of my practice because everybody eats and everybody likes to talk about food.
Definitely. And we are fasting right now, so we do really want to talk about food.
Yeah, you guys are dry fasting, your mom told me. How's that going?
It's going good. Yeah, it's during our holy month of Ramadan. So we're fasting.
So you guys also culturally, you're used to that. And, fasting is a really interesting way of engaging with food and noting, the kind of control. You guys look like you've survived the day and you haven't had anything to eat since this morning.
Yeah.
Yep. Since before the sun came up. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you feeling right now? Are you guys starving? Are you used to it? Like, what's your...
used to it.
Yeah, I think we got more used to it. And in the winter, it's a little easier.
Really? It's a little bit of a shorter day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, before we jump into like mental health, can you like tell us a little bit about like what is actually happening to like child or like teens that says that they are depressed or anxious?
Yeah, so we've seen a really big increase in the number of teens who are talking about depression and anxiety over the past, let's call it 10 years. We've also seen an increase in the risk of really concerning symptoms like suicidal thoughts. And I think some of what we know is going on is that it's a little more challenging to be a teen. In this book, Healing the Modern Brain, I talk about, what do I mean modern brain? Right now, there are 60 million adults with depression and anxiety in America. And the modern brain is the idea that we've had this brain and now we're put it in this new environment. There's lots of noise and light pollution. Boy, there's so many screens. You can't get away from them. There's all this ultra processed food. Everybody's a little sleep deprived. Right. And this is all stuff that kind of sets us up for mental health problems or increases the risk of mental health problems. And so teen mental health is something we really want to focus on for a number of reasons. One, a lot of mental health disorders and concerns come up in the teen years, that people first experience clinical depression often when they're a teen. Same thing with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, or increasingly, unfortunately, substance use, whether it's vapes or cannabis. There are a lot of teens who are using more, drinking more alcohol. And so it's the time when people really start to struggle with their mental health. So we want to be very vigilant and help give people more tools. I also think with the advent of social media, everybody says it, but we've kind of got to say it again. Like, increasingly that just really looks like it disrupts teen development. You just have more self-injury, more, really dark thoughts, more risk of having a mood disorder, more problems with your self-esteem. And so then, I think that creates a real challenge where also a lot of people connect on social media. Everybody loves Snap. And so this is some of the things that are going on with teenage mental health.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
That is like so true because like, again, it's happening in the real world.
That's cool too.
Yeah, we can definitely see, especially with the social media part.
So like, how can food affect kids, the brain, and it can change their mood?
Well, I think for the first part, how brain affects food is, if you think about it, everybody, like everything in your brain is made of food, right? I mean, except for the oxygen you breathe, every other molecule that gets up there, the carbon, all the tryptophan and tyrosine, all those neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, they're all made out of food. And so one way to think about how food impacts the brain is you're eating the building blocks of your brain. And there are certain nutrients that the brain just needs more of. And when it doesn't have them, we have real problems in our mental health. Like vitamin B12 is a big one. It's literally the biggest vitamin that we eat. You have a whole specialized set of cells that create this thing called intrinsic factors so you can absorb B12 because it's so big. But we know if you have low levels of B12, your brain shrinks faster as you age, your risk of depression skyrockets, people feel anxious, they feel like cognitive, kind of foggy. So those are some of the ways. Another way to think about it is if we think about mental health these days, and I talk about this in this book, Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. I've got this little graphic, and I'm seeing if I can pull it up here. It's called The New Science of mental health, new science of depression and anxiety. And, and it asks people to think about depression and anxiety a little differently. That I want you to think about depression in terms of what's called neuroplasticity. That if we do things right, like we're moving our bodies and eating well, part of the reason that feels so good is we're inducing brain growth and repair. And that's called neuroplasticity. And a lot of times when people think about depression or anxiety, they just think about like serotonin problem. And, serotonin is really fascinating. I love the serotonin medications. I work a lot with serotonin, but, brain growth and repair, it's really hopeful, especially this idea that you guys and everybody listening, we can do things every day, even today. Like today, if you snack on more nuts, you're eating the food that protects from really low levels of BDNF in the research. Or if you eat less processed foods, you're eating in a way that, according to the research, is going to increase levels of what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And this is like a brain growth agent. I mean, literally, you put it on brain cells and they like reach out and try and connect with more brain cells. It's really powerful stuff. And so in these books, I'm trying to invite people to think about their mental health in new modern science ways. Neuroplasticity, another big buzzword is inflammation. And when we think about inflammation and what we call neuroinflammation, what that means is our brain's alarm systems are going off. And, we all need a fire alarm in our house, but if it's going off every night, that's no good. It interrupts your sleep and you tend not to trust it over time. And so learning to eat and live your life in a way that kind of quells inflammation in the brain is really key to having good mental health, because inflammation in the brain feels like anxiety, depression, and cognitive fog. And then lastly, I like to talk a lot about the microbiome, all these organisms that live in our gut, and some of the basic things that people need to do, eating more plants and eating more fermented foods to have a microbiome that supports health, because the microbiome and the gut are the center of your immune system. And so, those are some of the ways that food relates to mental health, is that, every time you're eating, you're making a choice about brain growth, about inflammation, and about the diversity of your microbiome. And so that's how I kind of want people to orient their thinking, because it makes sense. Everybody's eating to lose weight or get muscle. And the most important thing you have is your brain. Why not eat in a way to protect it?
Wow.
Definitely. And I mean, whenever, let's say someone's dealing with a mental health, issue, no one ever talks about food. And I think that's definitely important to bring food into the talk about mental health, because the gut and the brain are connected. So I think that's just amazing what you're doing too.
So if kids feel anxious, sad, or stressed, are there certain foods that might help them feel better?
Sure. It's a great question, Kasam. So, first of all, I think is for kids thinking about foods that you like, and particularly plants that you like. There aren't a lot of foods that I feel really upset, I'm going to eat it and I'm going to feel better. But sometimes what I find is people using healthy comfort foods. So for me, when I get upset, I want to eat pasta. But, pasta, it's okay, but it doesn't have as much nutrition as we like. So what if I chop up some kale and I get some other veggies and I saute them and I put some garlic in there and I get a little pesto? Well, boy, I've just added 10 or 12 plants to my pasta. I've added all these phytonutrients. I've increased what we call the nutrient density, how many nutrients I get per calorie. And so those are all moves. They're going to take something that's kind of meh, it's just pasta. It's like toast. It's kind of neutral. It doesn't really do much for you. And I've loaded it up with brain foods, all kinds of plants, maybe some seafood. And I find that a really comforting meal. Sometimes when people are upset, I recommend, it's really about sitting and trying to understand what's going on. Sometimes a nice cup of tea does that. Or if it's early in the day, a cup of coffee in your journal is a great way to understand what's going on in your mind. I have a little rhyme, Kasam, in terms of the general food categories that help people feel better. Maybe everybody listening who hears this out there on the internet can sing along. It's seafood, greens, nuts and beans, and a little dark chocolate. Rainbow celebrations. Don't forget the fermentations. And so those are the food categories. So, Kasam, if you were feeling down and, maybe you want some ice cream, I think, okay, he's craving something sweet. He's craving something a little sugary. Can I cut up a pear or an apple? Maybe even drizzle, if you're really need something special, drizzle maybe a little dark chocolate on there, or have a little tiny cup of some mini chocolate chips and some walnuts, right? So mostly what you're eating is fruit, because fruit's a pretty healthy snack in my mind. Or thinking about something that, if you're feeling a little down, and I don't know, sometimes people feel like nauseous when they're anxious, or they want really simple things. So stuff like hummus, I like a lot. Anything with protein in it generally can be a good idea. So, I think a lot about beans and hummus and chickpeas and lentils. And then, I always ask patients, what are some of your favorite foods? What foods do you like? What foods settle you down? What foods feel like home? And so it's not so much like, oh, you ate an oyster and now you have so much B12, so you feel great. That's not how the body works. But it is around, you've kind of heard about emotional eating, and people feel like that's a bad idea. And I'm a psychiatrist. I kind of think emotional eating is really interesting. Like, how, when you're feeling emotional, can we use healthy food to help you feel better? So that's a little bit how I think about it.
And there's probably more in this fantastic book right here.
Mm.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get that book today. And your new book that just came out, which I'm pretty sure was like a #1 new release.
Yeah, that's Healing the Modern Brain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. So let's talk a little bit about can you clarify a little bit about like prebiotics, postbiotics, and probiotics, and also introduce what is butyrate?
Butyrate. So everybody, this is where we're talking a little bit about this thing called the microbiome. So if you just put your hand right under your rib cage, right, that's where your colon kind of goes across there, like a big upside down U. And the colon is the last part of your gastrointestinal tract, and it's where you've extracted a lot of the nutrients out of the food and kind of mixed up a lot of digestive enzymes with your food. And so in your small intestine, you do a lot of the absorbing of nutrients and digesting food. In the large intestine, you're mostly extracting a little bit of nutrients, but it's the stuff that you weren't able to absorb, like all the fiber in plants. And so this then feeds the microbiome. And so prebiotics are plants. Prebiotics are fiber. And sometimes you'll see people make a list of all these special ones, like Jerusalem artichokes always at the top. I think everybody, especially kids, should just realize, hey, we're just talking about plants. Like collard greens is good for your microbiome. Lentils is good for your microbiome. Like anything that has fiber in it is a pretty interesting idea. And so that's going to be fruits and vegetables. So probiotics that are live organisms, right? So you'll see those. A lot of people recommend like a probiotic pill, and I don't. I recommend you eat fermented foods. That's stuff like kimchi, yogurt, sauerkraut. I really like the liquidy yogurt called kefir. It's got a really nice flavor. You can have it with like a little mango, and it tastes a little bit like a mango lassi. You can mix it in with a smoothie. But the reason is that these fermented foods, these probiotics, they're alive. They're live bacteria, and they help populate your gut and kind of influence the types of organisms that grow in your gut. So, postbiotics and butyrate. Sorry, butyrate is it's one of the short chain fatty acids, and so oh no, you're thinking butyrate is a short chain fatty acid. Butyrate is I'm so sorry, that's a ketone body. So that's when you don't eat carbohydrates and break down fats. Beta hydroxybutyrate is the main energy source then for the brain. You're thinking butyrate, and that's one of the things that is a byproduct of the microbiome. The microbiome makes these short chain fatty acids. So they take your fiber, and you can't break down fiber, and they like kind of chew it down to shorter, more digestible pieces.
Oh, there's a difference between butyrate and butyrate. Oh, very, very similar.
I think so. BHB is beta hydroxybutyrate. I think that's going to be a ketone body.
Yeah. Honestly, you were mentioning a little bit about fermented foods. Like we actually have like a rainbow variety of fermented foods.
Like root kraut, like root crab.
My favorite is red cabbage kraut.
Oh boy, so good. Red cabbage, like a fermented red cabbage sauerkraut.
Yeah. We have all the sauerkrauts.
My favorite.
Like we just pick one of those.
Yeah, we all get it from a farmer's market. So very fresh, very local. Yeah, so and we have like lots of it in our fridge. So we have it in the morning and it's
We have it in the sunset.
yeah.
So stress. A lot of teens are now feeling more stressed. Maybe it's like doing tests or just like school in general. But what are like top 3 brain foods like that every kid should eat more of? Maybe like to get smarter, do better in tests.
Well, I think that for kids learning to eat a lot of plants. I'm a big fan of seafood. Particularly like wild salmon. It's hard for some kids, but learning to eat sardines and even anchovies. Those are really, really great fish, great food choices for you. I think for kids staying sharp and focused, again, the fermented foods really can be helpful in terms of, getting a more diverse microbiome, hopefully helping have less inflammation. So we talk about then having more focus. But those are, some of the ideas, mostly for kids, I'm wanting them to eat healthy whole foods. And so if it's a pear, if it's some lentils or beans, I'm a big fan.
How about blueberries?
Blueberries are great. There's something that's special about blue and purple pigmented things. They've got like a special set of pigments called anthocyanins that are supposed to be really good for your gut health and brain health. So blueberries are always a good choice. Blackberries are always a good choice.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, because we mentioned a little bit about like how blue and purple foods can really help the brain, but we don't know too much about like how much it really helps.
Yeah, we also talk about like eating the rainbow, like having different types of colors because they can help in so many ways. So what is your top tip to increase food and mood?
What is your top tip that can increase the food mood like this week, like today, like probably right now?
Right now, I mean, well, I would say that helping teens in particular think about some of the top sources of some of these foods. And so, people, a really good nutrient is magnesium, right? And so where do you get magnesium? You get magnesium from beans and greens. Magnesium has had some studies that it can even be an antidepressant. Nuts like almonds, walnuts, cashews, really great snack for kids. They're really filling. They've got a lot of nutrition in them. I think what kids tend to struggle with is seafood. There's not a lot of wild salmon or fish in some kids' life. So I always tend to recommend that. But those are a few ideas in terms of feeling better right now today. I think helping out in the kitchen when your parents are cooking, sound like the parent mafia hired me to say that. But I mean, in all seriousness, being involved with mealtime a little bit, I think is good for your mood. We all like it when the kids help out, but I think also kids like it, because it's a little bit more of a grown-up stance. You're helping out with the running of the household. So whether it's setting the table, whether it's making the salad, I really love it when kids are involved with some of the meal prep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're usually always like involved with the meal prep too. So
what do you guys like to cook?
Wait, so I do a lot more of like the baking stuff. Like I like to cook more of like or bake more of like the breads and the cookies and stuff like that. Maybe mostly because I like to eat it after that. But and then you guys?
Yeah, I like to do, you can call it crazy stuff with no practice. Well, I tried, I would call it I did Samuel Wellington once, but my favorite thing that I cooked, probably I like to saute potatoes.
I'm like a side chef.
Helper.
I'm like the helper.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your best just overall lifestyle tip that you can give to kids to optimize specifically their mental health?
Oh, I think the biggest challenge of being a kid is learning to describe what's going on inside of you and then picking who to share that with. So I just think a lot's happening as you're growing up, especially these days. You're exposed to so much and there's so much information, and you guys are growing up in an age of AI. But that fundamental skill, I like journaling, of just learning to express yourself with words and learning how to describe what you're feeling with words. That's really the first step. We call that, it's the first step of mental fitness is self-awareness. And so I really like that as a tool for kids, that in your development, you're looking to understand more of who you are and how you function.
That's amazing. And yeah, lifestyle is really important, but also like really talking about like just kind of the obvious things about mental health, about really just the first step to like understanding yourself.
Mm-hmm. So thank you so much, Dr. Ramsey. We know you're incredibly busy, so we are so thankful for you to be here with us today. Where can people learn more about you and your amazing work?
Yeah, because we talked a little bit about your book, but tell us more about like your work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you guys and everybody listening. Hey, my resources are easy to find. I'm on Instagram at Drew Ramsey MD. I run my own account, so if you DM me, I'll see it. I love seeing posts of brain food you guys are eating. Anybody out there, please tag me when you post some healthy food. That always makes my day. I've got 5 books, starting with the happiness diet. But the most recent, Healing the Modern Brain, is really supposed to be a simple way for you to think about stuff kind of a psychiatrist wants you doing every week. You want to take care of your brain health? I want you taking care of your sleep. I want you to think about your social connections and work on building deeper and better relationships with people. So my website's drewramseymd.com. I've got some e-courses there. We've got a free newsletter, Friday Feels. So I'm super easy to find. And I hope mostly you hear my encouragement, everybody. So listen in. There's so much that you can do to help and improve and take care of your mental health. I've done lots of therapy in my life. A couple times I've needed meds. I've always been helped by the yummy food. Exercise always helps my brain. I've had bouts where I didn't sleep well. And I guess I just throw that in there that somebody like me, I've had a really good life. I'm in my 50s now. I've published books. I've treated thousands of people. Life has its ups and downs. And so probably the one piece of advice, along with all the yummy food I want to tell you all, is that keep on keeping on, that it's really important to understand that every life has some mental health challenges in it. And that doesn't mean we can't overcome them. It doesn't mean that we should give up. It doesn't mean that we can't achieve great things. It means some days are a lot harder than others for us. And so I think you've got to keep that in the front of your mind. I think a lot of people are telling all the young folks today, all this doom and gloom and AI is going to take over and the ultra processed food. And it just, you guys are going to have a wonderful and exciting time during this life. But learning really, really great self-care skills and taking it seriously is going to give you more independence, more freedom, and more robust mental health. And so I hope this helps you do some of that. I'm glad we've talked about some of my favorite foods, and I look forward to seeing you all down the road. Thanks so much.
It's our pleasure.
It really is our pleasure. And really, thank you again, Dr. Ramsey. This is such a powerful episode. We are so incredibly thankful. I really enjoyed this conversation. Now, to recap Dr. Ramsey's key points.
Everything in your brain is made out of food. You are eating your building blocks of your brain.
Neuroplasticity is brain growth and repair. We can do things every day that can help our brain work the best it can. Eating well, exercise, sleep, and managing stress is so important.
And our brain's alarm systems are going off, learning to eat and live your life in a way to optimize your brain health and lower neuroinflammation.
Take care of your microbiome.
Every time you are eating, when you are making a choice of your brain health. Either you want to protect it or hurt it.
And when you're upset, sit and figure out what is going on in your mind.
Seafood, green nuts and beans, and a little dark chocolate. Rainbow celebration and daily fermentations.
And learn to describe what is going on inside of you. Learn to express yourself with words. Some days are harder than others. Just carry on. Learning these self-care skills will give you way more resilience. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zain Sari.
I'm Imad.
And I'm Qasim.
Follow my Family 9 social media, Holistic Mom D, and The Holistic Kid Show. And look out for our new best-selling book, The Teen Health Revolution. Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to create a healthy future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kid Show, where kids are empowering kids. Thank you, everyone.